there with the tariffs. I think a lot of Americans in particular were very confused about why Canada was on the list. Why would our closest trading partner and ally, Canada, be getting hit with, 30% tariffs? 25% tariffs. Should have been 30.
I mean, do you want me to comment? It's little known, but I have covered in my book, Willful Blindness, that Canada's not only, do we not have a very functioning military anymore, as Mr. Trump has, maybe hurtfully pointed out, but truthfully, but our law enforcement capacity, our federal law enforcement has been also pretty non-functional, to the point where, as I, without any modesty, I've sort of led the world in understanding among journalists that Chinese organized crime, according to the Americans, is running Western Hemisphere money laundering from Vancouver and Toronto. And this is the very complex underground banking system that literally underwrites the Mexican cartels that are running the fentanyl into American cities. And the Chinese triads are laundering the money and moving it, throughout the West and around the world and back to China, where those precursors are produced and shipped into Mexico and the West Coast of Canada. So that's the issue right there. A lot of people that are low to mid-level or, politically influenced thinkers are thinking, mean Mr. Trump, why are you hitting, our best friend and ally, Canada? But look, I know that at a bipartisan level, even former Secretary of State Blinken, as I've reported, came up to Canada and talked to a very honest politician in Canada that knows the issues. And they were saying, look, Canada has some major legal loopholes being exploited by China, and you need to fix that. So, Mr. Trump, look, 25% tariffs, I don't think that's justified, but it is justified to say that Canada is a completely vulnerable to China's fentanyl trafficking and being used.
So even though more fentanyl itself might be coming from Mexico, China is using Canada as the money laundering center for the entire thing.
Yeah, to be very specific, what the DEA calls the command and control figures for Chinese triads are set up in Toronto, Ontario, and Vancouver. These are the people that were running billions of dollars through BC government regulated casinos, if it's starting to add up for people that really follow the facts here. And these triads have set up in Canada, partly because Canada has a large diaspora population, and the triads and the Chinese Communist Party, through their thuggish tactics, unfortunately, attempt to use the diaspora populations and use the economy in those communities, and they use it at scale. And that's what's behind, as I know, the Toronto Dominion banking case and any number of massive money laundering operations in Canada, run from Canada, that Canadian law enforcement, as I've argued in Willful Blindness, just can't tackle. So yeah, the finance piece is big, but I want to stress, British Columbia, the western coast of Canada, just like the western coast of Mexico, just like Panama, has Chinese-influenced shipping entities, infiltration of port facilities. I'm talking about British Columbia now. So, as you know, Panama has already rapidly backpedaled and said that, they will not renew their Belt and Road deal. I've read in Bloomberg that they will look at, telling Mr. Li Ka-shing, the Hong Kong tycoon, that his port operations may not be welcome in Panama anymore, because they want to get back in line with the U.S. government, who effectively could take back the canal, if it's shown that China is basically running the show there. And I'm saying that the very same entities, including Li Ka-shing and his history of business in Western Canada, are a concern to the U.S. government, specifically in Vancouver.
It's interesting because the reporting on this on the U.S. side has either ignored the fentanyl thing completely, Or, for example, there was a CNN fact check that
Yeah.
was basically like only 0.2% of the fentanyl that comes through the U.S. border comes through Canada.
That's seized at the U.S. border.
Oh, seized at the U.S.
Yeah.
border comes from Canada, was seized at Canada's. So the idea is that, like, oh, obviously this is making, a mountain out of a molehill.
Wow.
Yeah, like
Exactly. I mean,
yeah.
I had to laugh at that. Mr. Fact Checker Daniel Dale, former Toronto Star reporter. It's like he's not riding the Trump fact checking bus, for a career for too long here. But look, it's offensive. I've been working on this for 10 years. As you know, I wrote this book, Fentanyl Pills Exploding Out of Vancouver. There's data behind that. In my book, I wrote that a purportedly legitimate businessman was caught with 85 tons of precursors in Vancouver. This was connected to these very same Chinese casino money laundering networks that are using, these are proven facts, using BC regulated casinos for billions of dollars of money laundering. Another data point, 1.2 billion in cash laundered through a BC government casino in 2014, 1 year. Right. So when we talk about 85 tons of precursors for meth and fentanyl, that can kill everyone in North America a number of times over, right? If the pills are pressed up, as they are done in super labs and many small labs in BC. Another figure, 1,000 kilograms of fentanyl precursors were seized in Vancouver's port in 2022. That's one seizure by Canadian officials. Only 5% of containers are inspected in Vancouver's port. I can go on and on and on, but the facts are the precursors coming in, the level of Chinese organized crime, the level of Chinese Communist Party connected business persons in Vancouver, all of this the US government knows, makes Canada a major node of China's fentanyl trafficking. The cartels are operative in BC as well. And so the fact that 40 kilograms is all that was got at the border by the US officials, it speaks to a lot of things. But again, the fact here is Canadian government documents say Canada is now a fentanyl exporting nation, right? So the fentanyl is going out to Australia, Japan, United States. It's going out of our port and back in, confusing ways. So not everything that's coming across Canada's porous northern border with the United States is what's at play here. So to Mr. Dale and all the, the quick studies on fentanyl with their reading, one data point and saying nothing to see here. Okay, they're pushing out the misinformation. I would argue that they're supposed to be checking.
So I guess the question is, why has the Canadian government and I guess the US government not pushed to do something about this? Because this is not a new problem.
It's not a new problem. I mean, the US government is now, they've had enough. Simply put, right? This, as you guys know, I mean, I can talk to people in DEA. I can talk to maybe people formerly in the CIA. I can talk to people in Canadian intelligence and police, and they say, Mr. Trump is, there's a lot going on in his rhetoric. Maybe 25% isn't justified. Maybe it's a bit rude, when you fought a world war with this country, on your side, and you were together in Afghanistan. Canada was there for you in 9/11. Yeah, it's tough. But this is a bipartisan state level concern in the United States that Canada cannot prosecute fentanyl, can't prosecute money laundering. So what do you do when Canadian officials, either through omission, willful blindness, the title of my book, or corruption at a high level, which is a live concern, I think, and I'll be reporting more on. You're not doing anything. So yeah, look, America is still the leader of the free world. They don't, it's a proven fact, as I've said, that Canada is a fentanyl exporting nation. Why is a G7 country a fentanyl exporting nation? Is anyone answering that to anyone's satisfaction? No. So the US is saying, okay, you do something. And again, I'm a Canadian. I feel pretty offended by a lot of Mr. Trump's rhetoric, President Trump's rhetoric. But I'm telling you, I'm sourced up to know that Canadian law enforcement says, right, Canada's not doing anything.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this highlight from our podcast. China Unscripted and China Uncensored only exist because of your support. Pro-CCP big tech censorship is trying to run us out of business. Subscribe to our new premium website, ChinaUncensored.tv, to help us carry on the fight to uncensored China. And you'll also get exclusive episodes, live streams, and of course, the full podcast. Plus, my undying love. And you can't put a price on that.